I'm Joe Harless, and for more than 35 years I headed the Harless Performance Guild, which was essentially a consulting firm that was devoted to developing and applying and then later teaching others performance technology. Like most of the other long-term theorists and practitioners in the field, my roots are in program instruction. And which later morphed into a larger system that we call instructional technology. I and others then evolved performance technology as the macro system to performance technology over time, probably identifiable starting in the late 60s and early 70s. Now, I had a lot of influences in my own personal and professional evolution, certainly starting with Kepner and Trego's book, The Rational Manager, which essentially described a generic problem-solving model. What I did was marry the generic problem-solving model with experimental design that we all learned in graduate school, and I produced something called the Performance Problem-Solving Workshop in the late 60s for our clients' in-house capabilities. Later, in 1970, I summarized the Performance Problem-Solving Workshop into a little book called An Ounce of Analysis, which was essentially a diagnostic model concentrating on human performance. Is probably best known for coining the term and first outlining procedure called front-end analysis. Now, I was also influenced early by other luminaries in our field, such as Tom Gilbert, Gary Rumler, Don Toasty, Bob Mager, Susan Markle, Roger Kaufman, Margot Hicks, and of course B.F. Skinner, who arguably fathered us all. But in terms of the nuts and bolts of my own model, I probably owe my colleagues at the Harless Performance Guild gratitude, or perhaps blame. These included such ISPI luminaries that worked for us, like Claude Lineberry and Stephanie Jackson, Donald Bullock, Evan Orban, Lindsay Robinson, Bruce Stanton, and a whole host of other very bright people who refused to take what I said without testing it and often arguing about it. But I don't think there's a common definition of performance technology, and if I had to give a 30-second speech in an elevator about what it is, I'd probably define it as I always have, which is that performance technology essentially is a process, and it's a process for the analysis, design, development, and implementation and evaluation of interventions on human performance, that's worthy to the goals of the organization and perhaps to society as a whole. But since retiring from the head of Harless Performance Guild, I've been in recent years seeking to try to also expand the scope of performance technology in terms of its application into arenas other than business and industry and the military. For example, after retiring, I spent a couple of years doing research in educational reform and wrote a book called The Eden Conspiracy, Educating for Accomplished Citizenship, which is nothing more and nothing less than performance technology applied to education. That book is now then served as a basis for a good deal of educational reform that's happening now in Georgia in several school systems, including our own local school system. Also, currently, I'm working with several hundred volunteers to perform a diagnostic front-end analysis on a real macro basis, which is to try to determine the improvement needs of our entire town under the auspices of the Chamber of Commerce. To my knowledge, this is the first time that such a mega analysis and design based on performance technology has been attempted. Roger Kaufman, I think, has been trying to preach that we should be doing this all along. Do I have to tell Roger some things now? So you can see my own personal history kind of tracks, I think, the development of the field when we start with a relatively small system that we call program instruction, which then expanded and morphed to a supra system called instructional technology, which then morphed into a supra system of performance technology, and now we're starting to the ultimate system, which is the improvement using performance technology approach to improve the societal systems. So the name of our home organization has changed, and to reflect that progression, it was first the National Society for Program Instruction, then later for the International Society for Performance and Instruction, which I always thought was funny, and then currently the International Society for Performance Improvement. What will be the next name? Might it be the International Society for Societal Betterment? Maybe we'll see.